Welcome to this episode of the Good for America podcast. I'm your host, former Congressman Bob Good, former chair of the House Freedom Caucus. As always, I ask you to please subscribe to the podcast, rate the show, share it with your friends. Follow me on social media at Rep Bob Good. Again, thanks for joining us for this episode of the podcast. This episode is called My First Thoughts on the Epstein Saga. My First Thoughts on the Epstein Saga. This is not a subject I have spoken about before. I don't usually talk about topics such as this. A couple of disclaimers here. I have not closely followed previously the Epstein story. It wasn't of great interest to me in years past. I have rarely, if ever, spoken publicly about the Epstein story. This all began before I arrived in Congress in 2021, and I instead focused on what I thought were the most important issues. Our debt and our spending, our border and immigration crisis, and protecting our constitutional freedoms. I rarely, if ever, I'm not sure if I ever spoke publicly about the alleged crimes, the files or lack of files, the accused individuals related to this Epstein story. I benignly agreed with the concerns and criticisms leveled largely from the right, from the conservative side over these past few years, specifically during the Biden administration. And I don't have any special knowledge and have had little thought about who in power was involved and who is possibly criminally guilty along with Epstein, with what took place over these years. And I certainly recognize that this is not even close to one of the most important issues or concerns to the country. I, like most Americans, don't care about Jeffrey Epstein in particular. That is, I don't care about who and what he was or how despicable and criminal his behavior or about his death in the jail cell. But I do, like most Americans, I care deeply about his 1,000+ innocent victims. Like most Americans, I care about the trafficking, the abuse, and the assault on minors, on children who were apparently in the suffering under the consequence of what Jeffrey Epstein and whoever was associated with him was doing all of those years. And like most Americans, I care deeply about justice, especially for the wealthy, the powerful, and the most connected, or the best well-connected individuals. I care about blind justice and about everybody being treated equally under the law. I think you'll agree with me that is foundational to who and what we are as a republic. Therefore, this is a very important issue, particularly with respect to holding those in power accountable. It's imperative that those in government do their jobs, that they operate with integrity and transparency, especially those in the Department of Justice and federal law enforcement, the FBI, who have tremendous power over the American people. We saw that on full display in a negative way over the last 4 years with the Biden administration and the Biden Department of Injustice, how they weaponized the power of their office against Americans and their political opponents, how there was disparate treatment based on what political party you were affiliated with or whether or not you were a conservative. They abused their power. They exercised lawfare like we've never seen in modern times. They conducted political witch hunts against their political enemies, cover-ups with respect to things that happened in the Biden administration, all the way to the Biden auto pen pardon scandal and the cover-up, the president's cognitive decline, and how that was, how those in the highest levels of power and the Biden administration were complicit in that. So those are obviously very important, and everyone must be equal under the law. Justice must be blind. Criminality by the wealthy, the powerful, and the well-connected must be pursued, exposed, and prosecuted. That said, I hope you were as troubled as I was by the president's recent long post demanding that we just dismiss the matter because he says so. He was calling for everybody just to move on and forget about Jeffrey Epstein. His post, perhaps you saw it. If not, I'm going to read through it. It's a little lengthy, but I think it's important. And I'm going to read the post that the president put out through social media just a few days ago. And I'm going to read it verbatim and comment on it a little bit as I go and then afterwards. The president wrote, "What's going on with my boys and in some cases gals? They're all going after Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's doing a fantastic job. We're on one team, MAGA, and I don't like what's happening. We have a perfect administration, the talk of the world, and selfish people are trying to hurt it all over a guy who never dies, Jeffrey Epstein. For years, it's Epstein over and over again. Why are we giving publicity to files written by Obama, crooked Hillary, Comey, Brennan, and the losers and criminals of the Biden administration, who conned the world with the Russia hoax, 51 intelligence agents, the laptop from hell, and more? They created the Epstein files, just like they created the fake Hillary Clinton, Christopher Steele dossier that they used on me, and now my so-called friends are playing right into their hands. Why didn't these radical left lunatics release the Epstein files? If there was anything in there that could have hurt the MAGA movement, why didn't they use it? They haven't given up on the John F. Kennedy or Martin Luther King files. No matter how much success we have had, securing the border, deporting criminals, fixing the economy, energy dominance, a safer world where Iran will not have nuclear weapons, it's never enough for some people. We're about to achieve more in 6 months than any other administration has achieved in over 100 years. And we have so much more to do. We're saving our country and making America great again, which we will continue to be our complete priority. The left is imploding. Kash Patel and the FBI must be focused on investigating voter fraud, political corruption, Act Blue, the rigged and stolen elections of 2020, and arresting thugs and criminals, instead of spending month after month looking at nothing but the same old radical left-inspired documents on Jeffrey Epstein. Let Pam Bondi do her job. She's great. The 2020 election was rigged and stolen, and they tried to do the same thing in 2024. That's what she's looking into as AG and much more. 1 year ago, our country was dead. Now it's the hottest country anywhere in the world. Let's keep it that way and not waste time and energy on Jeffrey Epstein, somebody that nobody cares about. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I hope you found that post, or you find that post, as troubling as I did. And frankly, this should re-energize, reinvigorate, and reignite efforts to double down on getting to the truth. It seems like that's happening across the political spectrum, across the conservative world, if you will, so many. But Trump's, in my view, ridiculous posts, he claims a perfect administration. And so therefore we shouldn't care about Epstein. And he says, hey, these are, we shouldn't be giving publicity to these files because they were originally created by Democrats during the Biden administration. He said, hey, look what we're doing on the border, the economy, with energy and with Iran. So we got to focus on these things because nobody cares about Epstein. Obviously, that last part is not true. If nobody cared about Epstein, then he wouldn't be responding, he wouldn't be talking about it, and he wouldn't need to put out that post. And if nobody cared about Epstein, then his post would have put everything to rest and everybody would have just forgotten about it and moved on. Now the president most recently has said that maybe Pam Bondi should release whatever she thinks is credible. I have a thought instead, or a suggestion. How about if we just release all the facts and the findings and let us decide what is credible? The comparison to the Biden auto pen scandal, that's embarrassing and it's irrelevant. One has nothing to do with the other. Yes, the Biden auto pen scandal may well be greater. A greater scandal, of course, that the president wasn't competent and capable of conducting the responsibilities of his office, and who in power around him was defrauding the American people by carrying out the presidency in spite of his cognitive decline and inability. But one has nothing to do with the other, and we can pursue both at the same time. Trust and credibility in life, and in politics even, is difficult to establish. If it's achieved, it's a reflection of the cumulative positive impact of a trustworthy life or a trustworthy career. That's true in business, that's true in relationships. Trust and credibility can be lost in a moment, however, and it's extremely difficult to recapture those when they've been lost. At some point, most of us, of course, will move on from Epstein. But the Trump White House and his Department of Justice may not fully recover from this issue if they don't begin to handle it right, if it continues to be mishandled as it has been. And I hope that you recognize the danger of the powerful falling in line and complying with what the president is telling them to do. I hope that you're troubled by those in the what I call the Trump first media who are surrendering and or defending. I have to say Fox News Channel might be the absolute worst because it seems as they're not even covering the Epstein saga. I haven't seen any coverage from Fox on it since this broke, particularly became an issue several days ago. I'm seeing on some other conservative media, but I'm not seeing on Fox News. That is not journalism. That is not reporting. That is not doing the most important job of media, holding government accountable. I have long complained during my 4 years in Washington in particular about the media abdication of its historic and most important traditional role and responsibility of holding government accountable, exposing corruption, getting to the truth, irrespective of who is in power. And the media used to take that very seriously, even to hold Democrats accountable. They used to decades ago. And we've long complained that the media has abdicated that responsibility, media at large, mainstream media, when it comes to holding Democrats accountable, whether it's the Biden administration or the Obama administration or the Clinton administration or whoever. But the so-called fourth and fifth estates have a vital role to play, exposing government corruption, if it's there, getting to the truth and getting it to the people. The founders recognized that, but that predated us becoming a country, quite frankly. And it's a critical responsibility. The fourth estate being the traditional media, and the fifth estate being a newer concept. That's the newer world of podcasts like this one, social media influencers, where all of us, frankly, get to participate. Many of you are participating in that. We all know that previously Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, J.D. Vance, President Trump himself, Don Jr., members of Congress on the Republican side, they all talked about the Epstein files, the lack of transparency and accountability, blaming the Biden administration appropriately. But then as power changed over to the Republicans, Pam Bondi infamously recently said, hey, the client list, the list of people involved with Epstein's crime is sitting on my desk right now for review. She said that recently. She even had a publicity stunt where she brought in conservative media and influencers to give them Epstein binders to say, hey, we're disclosing more information about what we know, and it really didn't disclose much of anything new. But the allegation that some have made, including the president, that, hey, if there is anything incriminating Republicans, then the Biden administration would have released it back in the 2020 campaign, or the 2016 campaign, or the 2020 campaign. The Biden administration, the Clinton campaign would release that. Again, I don't agree with that because the Democrats, those Epstein files, whatever they do contain, there's obviously been long rumored that many powerful Democrats, including Bill Clinton, were contained in there to some degree, and that other influential leftist people in power were rumored to be involved. So the Democrats, no more than the Republicans, I don't believe, really want the true content of the Epstein files to come out. I think it's a bipartisan, equal opportunity offender, whatever might be contained. And the Democrats believed they were going to win the 2016 election. But it's ridiculous to suggest that we can't or we shouldn't pursue truth and transparency because of other issues. That is the ultimate gaslighting. The issue, again, is that the rich and the powerful and the connected must be equal under the law with the rest of us. The issue is dishonesty and deception by government officials. With respect to the current administration and the Bondi Department of Justice, Were they lying then, or are they lying now? The issue is blind justice. The issue is potential cover up, the appearance of cover up, the appearance of any corruption in the administration. The current White House team, the current leaders of the DOJ and the FBI seem to agree during the Biden years in the 24 campaign that we need full disclosure, full transparency, full release, full accountability of whatever happened with Jeffrey Epstein. And so did their paid defenders and influencers who are saying just move on now and forget about it because Trump told us to, or because we just need to trust the Republicans who are in power. But child abuse and sexploitation are not trivial wastes of time. It's irrelevant that there are more important issues for the country. It's irrelevant that the Epstein case doesn't immediately impact the American people's lives. If that was the standard, that we're not going to prosecute a crime or do an investigation unless it's the most important issue facing the country, then we wouldn't prosecute any crimes or conduct any investigations. If the standard was, is this the most important issue of the American people or the only thing the government has to focus on, then we're not going to pursue it. Then again, we wouldn't pursue any crimes, any criminality. There's the level of hypocrisy and inconsistency and lack of integrity by, the paid defenders, the paid apologists and influencers on the conservative Republican side is embarrassing and appalling. Their defense of this, again, what makes them look like they're part of a cover-up almost always includes how great the big ugly bill was, or how great things are going at the border, or what the president's doing with the economy or the tariffs or the stock market. What does any of that have to do with transparency and accountability? We should demand truth and transparency, irrespective of whom it exposes and impugns. Again, we should demand truth and transparency, irrespective of whom it exposes or impugns. If the Justice Department can't or won't do multiple tasks, and they can't walk and chew gum, then fire them and hire those who will. The DOJ, yes, Department of Justice needs to focus on investigating and accountability for Biden's auto pen scandal, the Biden cover-up of his cognitive decline, the FBI and Department of Justice under Merrick Garland, Mayorkas lying to the American people and lying to Congress, Russiagate, and those 51 so-called intelligence officers who participated in that, what really happened on January 6th, what the government did to us during COVID, what Fauci did, things about the vaccine mandates and what happened to people in nursing homes. But it's dangerous for us to submit to a person or any person, especially one in government. It's dangerous to blindly trust a person, any person, especially one in government. I can tell you that the Republicans in Congress, who are awful quiet on this issue, most of them, they're comprised of three groups. Those who know it's wrong to just be quiet and surrender and submit and play along, but they're just too scared of President Trump. Then there are those who they know better, but they're Trump first instead of America first. And those are not the same thing. Often those are aligned. President Trump's policies and what President Trump is doing is what's best for the country, but those are not perfectly aligned. And then there are those who truly believe the sort of narrative of the anointed Messiah Savior who's infallible and can do no wrong. And you have to ask or wonder, what will these folks do in 2028? But in the meantime, we're told, forget about Epstein because of how great the administration's doing. Forget about Epstein because we're too busy with other things. Forget about Epstein because nobody cares. Obviously, millions of Americans do care. How much time, energy, and resources and effort would it take to reveal what already exists, reveal what's in the Epstein files? Why did he go to jail anyway? Why is Ghislaine Maxwell, his accomplice, his sidekick, his girlfriend, why is she in prison? Again, never blindly trust anybody in government. Never pledge unconditional loyalty to anyone in politics. Why would Pam Bondi claim to have a client list if it didn't exist? She needs to be accountable for that. Why would she believe that the country, let alone the conservative or MAGA base, would just forget about it and dismiss it because she said so? Maybe at the end of the day, the result of all of this is going to be that Republicans can't make stuff up. we should be held to a different standard than Democrats. Maybe at the end of the day, the result of this is the lesson that Republicans can't just make stuff up, that Republicans can't lie about evidence, what they have or what they don't have, that Republicans can't lie or deceive us about what they're going to do. Maybe the result is only that people have to be held accountable to do their jobs. Some have suggested that there ought to be a special prosecutor appointed because, again, this has the appearance of possible bipartisan, uniparty impact on who may be implicated in the Epstein files. This has the appearance of possible bipartisan, uniparty impact on culpability and consequence for those involved. And certainly the current administration has, on their own, put themselves in a position where their credibility is being undermined and their ability to accurately and truthfully investigate and reveal what's truly there with the Epstein files. Lots of us have other questions. Why are Bongino and Patel and Bondi rumored to be leaving, whether of their own accord or not their own accord? With respect to Epstein himself, why did the camera, the video in the Epstein jail seem to malfunction with that 1 minute gap during the most opportune or inopportune time? Suddenly we're told there's no list, there's no blackmail, there's no evidence, and he just killed himself. Forget everything else that you've heard or that you've thought. And again, this conflicts with years of comments by people like Bongino, Kash Patel, President Trump, J.D. Vance, Pam Bondi themselves. And you have to wonder why the president is being so dismissive and so defensive. Why is he inflaming and alienating the MAGA base? But folks have learned that even if you're a friend or you're part of the base, you are immediately attacked and gaslighted when you dare to question or not blindly bow. Nobody's a king, and Americans do care about victims, and they care about justice. Alan Dershowitz previously said that he knows that documents were suppressed to protect individuals. He has claimed that he knows the names of who's in those files. He knows who they are, but he says he's bound by confidentiality from a judge. But again, we have to ask, who were the patrons for these 1,000+ victims? Did Epstein do all of this by himself? Why did people go to the island and fly on the plane? And with the Trump administration, the Trump DOJ, were they lying before? Are they lying now? Or did the facts simply not confirm the claims and suspicions that they had before they assumed power and came into office? But again, why are they being dismissive and declaring any doubts or questions to be illegitimate? The louder they scream, I think the more questions people have. Why don't they just hold a press conference? Why didn't they, or why don't they hold a press conference? With Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, and whomever else they want to include, a town hall style Q&A, answer the questions, address the concerns, and convey understanding at the seeming contradictions and that there's a legitimate reason to have questions and concerns. They can do that, but they've chosen so far not to. But with choosing not to do that, they are in choosing to endure the fallout, the criticisms, and the political consequences. Again, this is our government. This is our republic, and it reflects us. It's up to us to preserve it and to protect it and to keep it. So thanks for joining me in this latest episode of the Good for America podcast. I hope you enjoyed the episode. And I, as your host, Bob Good, ask you again, subscribe to the show, share it with your friends, rate it, follow me on social media at Rep Bob Good. Let's keep the republic.